Hi,
Hello, how are you today?
I'm good. How are you?
Where are you today? You're always in a different spot.
I know. I'm in Montreal.
Oh,
I'm here in Montreal, but I was just at Maui Comic Con, which was amazing.
it sounds pretty great.
Yeah, it was pretty good. Where I
Oh,
was wearing your piece in Hawaii.
yes. Yeah, which has like a big giant, like a whale-like creature breaching out of the water. So it must have been kind of neat to have it surrounded by water the whole
Yeah,
time.
it was pretty great. Okay, so like I was saying before I started recording, I ask all the artists that I'm collaborating with on I Am the Comic Book the same four questions, so
Sure.
that we can talk about the project and stuff. So the first thing though is who are you, Scott, and how do we know each other?
Well, I'm a comic book artist, so I do a lot of stuff for Marvel and DC and Image and Dark Horse and all anyone who'll have. And I'm a penciler and an inker. I'm an artist basically, someone who creates the work. I don't do the color that often, but I do color sometimes. And yeah, I've done stuff for 31 years in comics now, so I've touched pretty much every character there is over at Marvel, and on current project I can't talk about right now. I'm touching every current project, every character over at DC. So I don't know. I've done a lot of stuff over the last however many years. I've probably been involved in about 700, 800 comics. So
And
and
we know,
yeah,
oh,
no, no, go ahead, please.
Oh, I was going to say, and we know each other, like we've met kind of circling around, but I feel it's through Jill really that like we kind of connected.
Absolutely. Yeah, my wife Jill works over at TC, and that's, that the I think because Jill knows everybody that I don't know, what winds up happening is that the two of us together pretty much know everybody. Yeah, we met properly, I think, at a convention in Anaheim, I think.
Yeah.
But I'd seen you around, and I know your work
Yeah.
from
Ditto.
different projects and things like that. So I was familiar with you and your name, and and it was a delight to meet you.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It was such a memorable thing. I feel like it was the first con kind of really, I don't want to say post-COVID because nothing is post-COVID. It's like
yeah,
whatever. But like when things were beginning to open up and we were at the bar.
yeah.
And it was just like this delightful art conversation that we had.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Well, I love talking about art with anybody,
Yeah.
so yeah, and you clearly do as well. I mean, you're very thoughtful about your work, and you're very thoughtful about everything that you put together. So
Well,
uh,
thanks. Thanks.
it's a delight to talk with you.
Yeah, it was a delight to get to know you better. Okay, so now what did you think of the project when of I Am the Comic Book when I first mentioned it to you?
Oh, I loved it. So I went to school in New York at an art school that had fine art and sculpture and media arts, film and stuff like that. And it really tickled my fancy to have a project that you were doing that had to do with comic books and had to do with all these other multidisciplinary and aspects to it. So like what I liked about it is it's a little aspect of performance art because you're literally walking around with the artwork on you,
Yeah.
which I really respected. And then there's that element of serendipity that you're sort of like diving into where you'll have something on your arm that's a narrative that and sort of in inflects, or sort of puts some meaning that wouldn't have been there
Yeah.
to events in your life. So, like we were saying at the beginning, you're in Maui, and you're surrounded by water, and then you've got this tattoo of a narrative of a character walking around, at the ocean,
Yep.
and you do the same exact thing, and then it informs and reflects back, the circumstances for you. I thought it was kind of interesting that at the beginning, especially the story is very lonely. Like the character is
Oh no. Oh no. Oh no.
The narrative changes, that the same thing would happen to you, that you're like that you're
Yeah.
surrounded by people and you're surrounded by friends and people that want to engage with you and things like that. Because this particular the panel setup that I was given was that the character is all alone, and even though a beast rises out of the water, it's not somebody who can be a friend. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
seems like that character has the big beast has an intelligence, obviously, because the main character is in a alien world, but that he didn't really have anybody that could be their friend. So I actually towards the end of that, and I don't know the answer to be. I haven't seen the next ones. Is I put a little creature up at the top, because I thought he needed a friend, dog or some sort of pet or some sort of alien creature that he could talk to. So I threw that in there just in hopes that people would pick it up. I don't really know if they have
It,
or not.
I mean, spoiler alert, it did get picked up.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but also, it's complicated because, well, okay, first I want to, before I get to the prompt question, because that was the
Yeah.
next question. But what I love, Scott, is that when I had first had this idea, I posted a sort of cryptic thing on Facebook that was like, who would be game to do a weird in like art project, like three panel art project with me. And you were the first person that
Oh, really?
posted, yeah, I'd be interested. And that made me really happy because I don't want to say I was worried, but I wanted it to be more than just like my close friends. I wanted it to be people that I hadn't collaborated with or whatever. So that made me really happy. So thank you for jumping in and without knowing what it was, like recognizing that it could be something cool. Um, and yeah, the prompt, it's interesting because you're the first person and the only person so far who put a word in there. And it's very difficult. I've been struggling a little bit with the story because in a way, Maxie has to be alone because there's no room in three panels. You can't have text really. My skin is not paper. It's
Yeah.
really difficult. So, and then like people, and then also it's like I'm giving a lot of information in that one sentence,
Yeah.
and there's only three panels, and my skin is not paper. And so it's like yours. I was like, I don't know, we'll see if it works, but it worked
Yeah.
beautifully and the words worked beautifully and it just printed like great on my arm. But then, there are like others that I'm a little worried about. And so I did actually start giving an indication like, okay, there can't be too much happening in each panel because if I sweat when
Yeah.
I put the tattoo on, then it blurs. Like it has to be. So it's kind of fascinating because I'm getting the idea for the next panel from what you guys bring.
Yeah.
And then also sometimes you all add something. And so then, so it's like this very complicated, exquisite corpse. It's really making me think about comics in a different way because like a three panel comic on your arm where you're trying to tell an exquisite corpse story where is different than like a three panel like syndicated comic or something like that.
Yeah.
So
Sure.
it's really fascinating and I was worried about the word. I almost emailed you and said we got to take the word out, but then I was like fuck it, if it blurs and it's just a blob, what it is, and it's going to be fine, but it worked beautifully.
Well, I gave a lot of thought to it because I wanted to have, the trouble with comic books is that we never have any noise.
Yeah.
It's not really like we don't have access to audio, in any way. And I thought like, a creature bursting out of the water. When I drew it bursting out of the water, I was worried that I hadn't gotten it down quite. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like, 'cause you're right. There's only three or
yeah,
four panels at
yeah,
most. I sat there and I was like, well, I didn't have this silent moment where there's nothing going on. That was
yeah.
the previous story. So I didn't have access to sort of making a quiet area, then have something burst
Yeah,
out. So I thought, well, boy, I better have something kind of exciting.
yeah,
And then I thought, well, let me put like a noise, because also the communication that the animal has is inaccessible to the character. Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? Like
yeah, yeah,
he doesn't speak that language or anything like
yeah,
that. So I kind of wanted to have like a noise that would be kind of odd and peculiar
yeah.
and memorable, and I tried to make it as big as I could because I knew it was going to be on your arm. So like even with the tiny details, I tried to be very careful about like what details I was
Yeah.
putting in because I knew that when it transfers over that it might not transfer everything.
You never know. I mean, like Nate Powell's, I've said this before, poor Nate, I keep saying it every interview. I had to do over twice because he thought he was doing very thick lines, but he was doing thick lines for him. He was like, they were so thick, Cecil. And like, but they were so delicate. And it was
Uh,
like 100 degrees in LA that day. And like, even with the air conditioning, it just just melted, you know? Hold on, I'm going to stop for a second because I've lost you. Do, do, do.
yeah, yeah. It paused. I don't know if you can still see me. Are you,
Yeah,
am
I
I
can.
here?
You're back. Yeah, you're back. This is another part of art, right? In the modern
Yeah,
world. Um, so yeah, so Nate's blurred because it was so hot. So I had to do it twice because, even though he did thick lines for him, they weren't sort of like thick enough to like sink into my
yeah,
skin. So I've like
absolutely.
said that to, I added that into the instructions, and one of the artists was like, "Oh, damn. And I'm gonna really have to go thick, because they're very delicate as well." But
Yeah, that's the trouble. A lot of cartoonists, we the pen or the tool that we're using sort of dictates like how big something's going to be.
yeah,
So like as far as the line, and lots of people sort of lean into the tiny lines, tiny
yeah.
scratchy things. So yeah,
Yeah, no, it's very fascinating. I mean, on the one hand, it's like if it's an imperfect transfer or whatever, it's like that's part of what it is. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Like it's like
yeah.
it doesn't matter.
That's part of and the fading of it as well over
Yeah,
time.
yeah,
It's almost as if like the narrative is very loud at the
yeah,
beginning, but then sort of becomes like a part of your life, and then sort of fades
yeah.
into the next chapter. So
It's
it's really an interesting idea.
it's
When you told me about it, or when I saw you talking about it, no, because I think you told me
yeah, I
about
told
it
you about it. Yeah.
in person, yeah, and I was like, oh my God, that's so. Like I said, in New York, like a lot of performance art, a lot of like conceptual art, like concept art was like the big thing in the late
Sure.
80s. Like,
Well,
it
my secret, I mean, I did the Plain Janes where it's like conceptual artists, right? And like I
yeah,
think that's my secret dream really is to be a conceptual artist. So this
but
is
you're
just
living it right now. So
yeah,
you
manifest.
don't have to shoot yourself in the arm. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. So exactly. So um yeah, and I liked to the third question I always ask is what did you think of the prompt? But what I like is that you asked me to have something like watery, like you asked me for like a weird thing to happen or something. You made a request, which then I accommodated with the whale, coming out of the water.
Yeah, well, it's funny because a lot of people do ask me things as I'm drawing stuff. They'll ask me, "What do you want to draw?" And I don't normally my instinct isn't to work that way. Like I like to problem solve. So, but I've gotten used to it enough that like I can come up with some sort of answer. And I forget why I kind of I can't forget why I would have thought that. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah.
I think maybe it was because the first ones there wasn't another creature there or something, and so you said you
I,
wanted to have an alien.
yeah, I wanted to have some sort of alien to
Yeah,
draw or some sort of action
yeah.
to sort of draw. Yeah, I think when I have a couple collaborators that I work with where we bounce things back and forth,
Mhm. I
and
love
that's
that.
been really fun to do
Yeah,
because
my fave.
it creates a third element. It's like the writer has an idea, I throw in an idea, and then usually when they come back for the dialogue aspect, it's like a there's like a third section.
Yeah. Oh no, you've paused again. Doo 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 doo. Internet, come back. Return to me, Scott. Hmm.
Okay. Oh,
Yay!
hey, I'm back. All right, from the void. I got followed up by the void, and well, everyone understands. I think it's funny because when I was a kid, the future was sort of in science fiction, where like like the Star Trek folks would have on the screen somebody from some great distance speaking to them in a giant sort of yeah, essentially their heads were giant,
Yeah,
and um, and that's happened like it's happened that we have this method of communication, but it wasn't really picking up. Zoom and all these programs were around for a long time, but like 10 years, I want to say. But now everybody has this experience,
yep,
so everybody kind of understands that
yep,
if the
it
person was,
happens.
you know,
I was going to say you were talking about collaboration in that way, and I love that. I mean, I think that's one of the best things about comics is that when you have a good relationship with the creator that you're working with, it really is like both of you are bringing stuff to the table, and it
yes,
becomes this sort of third voice that's in the room almost, which is the absolute best. And I love that about this project is that I feel like it is very collaborative, but it's also, I've gotten this from, you said it and everyone who's done it so far is a sense of play. You know what I mean? Like we rarely get to play anymore because we're professionals. And so, so it's kind of this fun, playful thing.
absolutely, yeah, that's a delight. You're right. We don't get to do it very often, and even when people do projects on their own, oftentimes they're sort of they get even tighter about things than they would normally if they were even working with a publisher because
Yeah,
everything becomes precious. Every decision becomes so monumentally important,
yeah,
that that sense of play does kind of vanish. You're right.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah. So it's
yeah.
great. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was
I'm
fantastic.
I'm
So
so glad. I'm so glad that you did it. I'm so glad that you're a part of it. And I'm so glad to talk to you about it. Okay, so my last
yeah.
question that I have is what are you working on right now and where can people find you? I know you probably can't say it, but you just did a cool like cover that had like every single character in the world in it.
Yeah, I've sort of stumbled into this process where I'm drawing everybody. So, um, it's it's funny. I'm such a big fan of comic books in general, and I'm such a big fan of like all the different people that worked in the field and all the characters. And this is kind of like me sort of cataloging for myself and for others, just all the things that I love about comics. So yeah, I did this huge X-Men cover recently that had pretty much every X-Men person that I could find. And the X-Men universe is very big, so
Yeah.
it was over 1,117. I did do some repeats, but And then I'm doing another one now. I can't talk about it yet, but in January or February, everyone will know. But if this one is just it's actually the research bigger. The same size. It'll be about 7 feet long as a
Wow.
artwork again, but but this one is incredible. I can't even. I might hang my hat up after this particular one.
I can't wait to hear what it is. I'm sure it's
Yeah,
going to be
absolutely. Yeah.
amazing. Okay.
Oh,
Well,
and
oh yeah,
they
where
can.
can people find
Yeah.
you?
Oh, yeah. So
Oh,
I'm on
and what else are
Instagram.
you working on?
Yeah, yeah. I'm on Instagram. I'm just about to start a project with the Archie comics universe and Dark Horse. So we're working on something together for that, and that's going to take up the majority of my beginning of my year. So
Amazing.
yeah, yeah, it's super fun. So yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm Scott Koblish at Instagram. I kind of ditched my
Everything
Twitter.
the other, yeah,
Yeah, and just because I didn't find that I was getting any value out of it, like it's nice to sort of light a candle in the darkness, but at some point I just was being deluged by, every time I opened up the app, they weren't sort of making it so that it was my friend
no, I know
or the
it's
people that I
terrible.
wanted to talk to. It
Yeah,
was just a whole bunch of like pablum. But
yeah,
at any rate, like, so I've gotten rid of that. But I'm still on Instagram, and everyone can find me there. And people can message me. I do commissions and things like that. So
yay.
yeah,
Well,
absolutely.
I hope that you and I get to work on a longer project together one day.
That would be
I hope,
delightful.
yeah, I hope the fates
I really like that.
smash
Yeah,
us together for for something, a one shot or something.
yeah.
That'd be
I'd love
awesome.
it. That'd be fantastic. That would be really nice. I'll put my thinking cap on and see what we can figure out.
Yeah. Also, say hi to Jill for me and
Yes, of
um,
course.
happy holidays. And thank you so much, Scott, for being a part of I Am the Comic Book.
Sure. Absolutely. It's been an unbridled joy. I really appreciate doing it. Like I say, it tickles my fancy. Involved in something that's really as neat as this project is. So I hope you find all sorts of. I know you'll find all sorts of unexpected things over the
Yeah.
next year, and may they all be joys. I think that I think that serendipity is a real thing. That
Yeah.
if Schadenfreude is a real thing, and if the zeitgeist is a real thing, serendipity can be that for you on this
I
project. So it's
I
awesome.
think I think so too. And and like I said, I'm hoping to do some kind of gallery, weird thing at
Yes,
the end of it.
what a
So
delight. I like that idea best. I think that
yeah,
part that part is pretty neat to be able to sort of like put an end point on it and
yeah,
sort of say like this is then
yeah,
this experiment. These are the things that happened that I was
yeah.
expecting. These are the things that happened that I didn't expect. So yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
All
always
right.
a delight.
Well, thank you. And I'm gonna stop the recording now and
Yeah, sure.
just don't leave yet because I'm gonna
Okay.
say
Well, thank